June 12th, 1943, over the Bay of Biscay. Frost clings to the plexiglass turret of a B-17 flying fortress as Staff Sergeant Walter "Red" Haskins steadies his twin, 50 caliber Brownings. Below him, the grey Atlantic churns like molten steel. Ahead, 3 dark specks rising fast from the clouds. Bandits, 11 o'clock high. The intercom crackles, the formation tightens. The drone of 4 Wright Cyclone engines merges with the whistle of incoming fighters, Focke-Wulfs, diving straight out of the Sunday. Haskins tracks one through his sights. The instinct is to aim at it, but he doesn't. His finger hovers on the trigger, his eyes measuring distance, closure, and angle. Then he aims behind. A heartbeat later, the fighter flies straight into the storm of tracers. A flash, smoke. The German plane tumbles out of the sky. To an untrained eye, it looks like luck. But back at the Tyndall Airfield Gunnery School in Florida, this was the very rule that separated life from death. Never shoot where the enemy is, shoot where he's going to be. Inside classrooms filled with chalkboards and model planes, instructors drilled geometry into young men who had never seen combat. They learned to read deflection angles the way others read a compass. Speed, range, and angle the Holy Trinity, their manual said. Every calculation meant survival. A 50 caliber bullet could cross the length of 2 football fields in a fraction of a second, but in aerial combat, even that blink was enough to turn a hit into a miss. The Germans had experience. The Americans had math. Instructors would shout through the roar of air-cooled engines. If he's coming head-on, aim for his belly. If he's turning away, aim for his tail. To the new recruits, it felt wrong, counterintuitive. But once they saw the gun camera footage, they understood. A straight-on aim was suicide. A calculated delay, a lead, or a drag meant precision. That's why, as Red Haskins fired over the Bay of Biscay, his hands didn't tremble. He wasn't guessing. He was solving an equation in motion, one that meant the difference between returning home or being swallowed by the sea. As the Focke-Wulfs broke formation and scattered, the air smelled of cordite and burning oil. The fortress shuddered with recoil, and the intercom crackled with a voice from the pilot's seat. "Nice shooting, Red. You just saved the whole damn tail section." Above the Atlantic, the lesson written on every gunner's heart held true again. Aim behind, survive ahead. February 1943, Tyndall Field, Panama City, Florida. The roar of B-34 trainers echoes over the Gulf Coast as rows of young recruits crouch behind mounted turrets, hands trembling on the grips. They are 20 years old, maybe less. Farm boys, machinists, gas station attendants now transformed into gunners in training. At the center of the field, an instructor in khaki yells above the din of engines. "You think you can just point and pull the trigger? You'll be dead in 5 seconds over Germany." A chalkboard behind him shows crude diagrams of aircraft in motion, looping arrows, dashed bullet paths, trigonometric scribbles. The lesson is simple but brutal. The sky is not two-dimensional. Each man learns that at 300 miles per hour, a fighter can cross a football field in 1 second. Bullets from a Browning M2 take a third of that to reach their mark. That's why the rule is burned into their minds. Don't aim where the enemy is, aim where he will be by the time your bullet gets there. The instructors call it deflection shooting. But the recruits call it guessing with consequences. Inside the Tyndall classrooms, models hang from wires, Messerschmitts, Zeros, and Mustangs. They spin on rotating mounts as students track them through mock gun sights. A switch controls a flashing red light, simulating the muzzle flash of a turret gun. When the light aligns with the model's path, the trainee presses the trigger. If his timing is perfect, the model lights up green. If not, it goes dark, and so does his name on the training board. In a small corner of the base sits a room known as the Dome. It's a spherical simulator, a primitive VR. Inside, recruits sit surrounded by projected film of enemy aircraft attacking from every angle. Each man grips a real turret gun, linked to the projection. The films were shot in real combat, with fighters diving, rolling, and looping across the screen. "Hit it as it crosses the frame," the instructor shouts through the speaker. The gunner hesitates, fires too soon. "Dead," the instructor says flatly. By the end of week 4, fewer than half remain. The rest are reassigned radio operators, mechanics, or cooks. The survivors are the ones who can see through motion, who can anticipate where a plane will be, not where it is. When a young gunner graduates from Tyndall, he leaves not as a marksman but as a mathematician in flight. His reflexes are calibrated to physics itself. And in the months to come over Europe, over the Pacific, that abstract geometry would translate into burning aircraft tumbling from the sky. August 17, 1943 Regensburg, Germany. The sun is a white fireball above the clouds. 97 B-17 flying fortresses push across Bavaria, their wings gleaming like silver knives. It's the first daylight bombing raid deep into the Reich, and the Luftwaffe is waiting. In the waist turret of Lucky Lady, Sergeant Frank Delaney locks eyes on the approaching swarm. Over 50 German fighters, Messerschmitt Blythe 109 seconds and Focke-Wulf 190 seconds, dive in from every angle. The bomber's tight formation bristles with machine guns. 10 men, 13 guns, 1 fortress. Delaney's throat is dry. The intercom fills with clipped commands. "Keep formation tight. Watch your 6. Don't waste ammo." Then the attack begins. The fighters streak in head-on, a deadly tactic perfected by the Luftwaffe. The instinct, every nerve, screams to shoot directly at the oncoming planes. But Delaney remembers the rule drilled into him in Florida. Aim for where he'll be, not where he is. He takes a breath. The world slows. He leads the fighter slightly, a finger's width off the nose, then squeezes the trigger. The Brownings roar. Brass casings rain to the floor. The tracers arc forward, invisible geometry in motion. And then, a spark. A 109's engine erupts in flame, shearing off its wing. The crew cheers, but Delaney doesn't. He's already swinging the turret toward the next target. For the next 6 hours, the sky becomes an execution ground. The bombers drop their payloads on Messerschmitt factories below, but at a cost. Out of 97 planes, 24 will not return. Over 250 men vanish into fire and cloud. Yet the survivors, the ones who mastered the lag-aim technique, claim kill after kill. When the mission debrief is held in England, commanders review the gun camera footage. They notice a pattern. The best gunners aren't reacting, they're predicting. The tracer streams don't chase the enemy, they intercept him. It's not just luck, it's timing, it's anticipation, it's physics turned instinct. By autumn, gunnery instructors begin teaching what Delaney and others proved in blood. Fire in short bursts to correct lead. Use tracers sparingly, the enemy can see them too. When he's diving, aim behind the tail. When he's climbing, aim above the prop. Each lesson is carved into the air by men who lived or didn't. That winter, bomber crews return to Germany again and again. The Luftwaffe still dominates the skies, but something is shifting. American gunners are no longer just defending. They're hunting back. November 1943, Tyndall Field, Florida, and the European front. The war in the air has become an equation of seconds and degrees. Instructors back in Florida analyze combat footage from returning crews frame by frame, bullet by bullet. They study why some gunners survive while others vanish in smoke. The answer lies not in bravery, but in mathematics. Captain William Bill Lear, a ballistics specialist, walks into the briefing hall holding a .50 caliber cartridge. He raises it to the light. "This," he says, "travels about 2,900 feet per second, but you're flying at 200 miles per hour. The target's coming at 300. You're not fighting in space, you're fighting in time." On the chalkboard, he draws a triangle. One side labeled enemy speed, another bullet path, and the third deflection. The recruits take notes feverishly. Lear continues, "If you shoot straight, you miss. The enemy will fly into your bullets. You have to lead, but the lead changes every second depending on your angle. It's the birth of predictive gunnery, a fusion of physics, instinct, and fear. To perfect it, engineers create the K-13 computing gun sight, a mechanical brain that predicts where a target will be. It's powered by gyroscopes and mirrors, adjusting automatically as the gunner tracks the enemy. By late 1943, bombers like the B-17 Farads and B-24 Jules begin carrying these marvels, transforming each gun turret into a miniature fire control system. Still, no machine replaces the man behind the trigger. Training films titled Flexible Gunnery, Your Life Depends On. It show animated dogfights, teaching recruits the strange counter-logic of the skies. If he's coming head-on, aim low. If he's turning away, aim high. If he's diving, don't chase, let him fall into your fire. By the time a gunner graduates, the mathematics are burned into muscle memory. He no longer thinks about degrees or angles, his body knows them. Meanwhile, in the European theatre, these lessons play out in blood and aluminum, over Bremen, over Schweinfurt, over Berlin. Formations of bombers fly into maelstroms of tracer fire and flak bursts. German fighters attack from the sun, from the blind spots, from beneath. But for every fortress that falls, others fight back with surgical precision. After each mission, intelligence officers recover gun camera reels. They show enemy aircraft breaking apart mid-dive, struck squarely even as they twist through evasive turns. The analysts begin to whisper, American gunners are no longer reacting, they're anticipating. By the end of 1943, hit probabilities double compared to early in the war. The data doesn't lie. The tactic of aiming behind or ahead, depending on angle, has turned the sky into a chessboard. And each gunner, crouched inside his glass dome at 30,000 feet, is both pawn and master, gambling his life on geometry written in fire. February 20th, 1944. The skies over Leipzig, Germany. The mission code name, Operation Argument. For the men flying inside those vast bomber streams, it will forever be remembered as Big Week. The 8th Air Force roars eastward, hundreds of B-17 seconds and B-24 seconds stretching across the sky in columns so long they vanish into the horizon. Each fortress carries 10 men, each man a piece of a living machine designed to outthink death. Inside the tail turret of Misbehavin', Sergeant George Pruitt braces his boots against the cold metal floor. He's done this a dozen times before, but today feels different. The Germans know they're coming. The Luftwaffe will throw everything it has. The call comes over the intercom. Fighters, 10 o'clock high. Dozens of Bf 109 seconds slice through the clouds, their guns flashing like white sparks. The formation bristles in response, the rhythm of turret fire rolling through the bombers like thunder. Pruitt tracks a fighter curving toward the formation. He can feel its speed 350 miles per hour and climbing. The instinct says, aim for the canopy. Training whispers, no. Lag it. Aim behind. Let him fly into your line. He squeezes the trigger. A burst of tracers streaks through the frozen air, not at the fighter, but slightly behind its wingtip. For an instant, the bullets seem to miss, then the enemy banks straight into them. The 109 shudders, explodes into flame, and spirals downward through the clouds. Got him! He flew right into it. Pruitt yells, but his voice is lost in the chaos. The crew doesn't celebrate for long. New waves appear for 190 seconds, me 110 seconds, me 410 seconds. Some carry rockets meant to tear through bomber formations, but the Americans have learned. Every turret, nose, tail, dorsal and belly works like part of a synchronized machine. Each gunner doesn't defend his own plane, he defends the man beside him. Each formation becomes a rotating web of intersecting fire, predicting enemy paths, overlapping arcs, creating invisible walls of lead. The Luftwaffe pilots, once so confident, now face something terrifying: bombers that shoot like hunters, not prey. In debriefings after Big Week, analysts confirm the transformation. The average kill-to-loss ratio for American bomber gunners doubles. Enemy fighters break off sooner. Their famed head-on tactic, once devastating, now costs them dearly. General Jimmy Doolittle, newly appointed commander of the 8th Air Force, calls it the turning of the tide. The Luftwaffe's fighter arm, drained by attrition, begins to crumble. And in the icy skies above Leipzig, George Pruitt, a two-year-old kid from Kansas, reloads his guns, eyes scanning the horizon. He knows the rule by heart now. Don't chase, don't guess. Predict and survive. The tide of air warfare has shifted not with bigger bombs, but with smarter bullets. March 1944, Tyndall Field, Florida, divided by 8th Air Force Headquarters, England. While young gunners fight for their lives over Europe, the quiet war of innovation rages in classrooms and laboratories thousands of miles away. The problem is mathematical, but the stakes are mortal. Captain Robert Stetson, an engineer from MIT, stands in front of a half-disassembled Norden bomb site. "If we can predict where a bomb will land," he says, chalk squeaking on the board, "we can predict where a bullet will meet a fighter." The result is a new era of applied physics in warfare, computing gun sights that think faster than any man. The K-14 gyro gun sight emerges from this research, a small, ingenious device that uses centrifugal motion to calculate lead automatically. Inside its glass reticle, a floating circle shifts as the target moves, telling the gunner where to fire. It's a mechanical prophet, but even the best machine needs a human rhythm to make it sing. At air bases across Britain, trainers hold night classes for bomber crews. They dim the lights and roll in projectors showing actual footage from combat missions. On the screen, fighters twist and dive every motion, a variable, every flash a lesson. The instructor pauses the reel. "Where would you aim?" he asks. One by one, the men call out guesses. Some say dead center, some say in front. Only one gets it right, just off his tail. The instructor nods. "Congratulations, you've just survived 5 seconds longer than the rest." Instructors like Master Sergeant Joe Burbank, a veteran gunner with 25 missions, travel base to base, turning numbers into instincts. He tells recruits, "When you see tracers pass just behind the target, don't correct. Hold steady. He's about to fly straight into 'em." It sounds insane. But gun camera film from actual raids proves it. Meanwhile, in the skies above the Ruhr, the 8th Air Force continues to grind the Luftwaffe down. Fighter escorts P-51 Mustangs have joined the bombers now, but the turret gunners remain the last line of defense when things turn close. The gunners have become artisans of time. Their work is unseen, uncredited. In every mission log, the words repeat. Enemy destroyed by defensive fire confirmed. Fighter disintegrated mid-air presumed hit. No one on the ground will ever know the seconds of calculation that preceded each victory, the microscopic adjustments of wrist and will. By spring 1944, the statistics speak volumes. American bomber gunners now average 2 enemy aircraft destroyed for every one lost. The secret isn't superior firepower, both sides use the same calibers. It's the geometry of survival learned in classrooms, perfected in combat, and burned into muscle memory. Each bullet is no longer a guess. It's an answer to a problem solved before it's even asked. June 6th, 1944, Normandy, France. Dawn breaks over the English Channel. Operation Overlord is underway. Thousands of ships cross beneath a sky thick with aircraft bombers, fighters, transports, all converging toward France. The men inside those planes carry not only weapons but the cumulative wisdom of years of brutal learning. Inside a B-24 named Iron Angel, Staff Sergeant Michael Mick Donovan mans the top turret. His hands rest lightly on the grips, eyes scanning the clouds. He's flown 20 missions already. He's seen friends vanish in fire and vapor. But today feels different. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about precision. Enemy fighters rise from Caen and Rouen, desperate to strike the invasion armada. Donovan spots a pair of FLA 192s closing fast from the right flank. He doesn't flinch. The old instinct to panic, to spray wildly, is long gone. Instead, he breathes. He remembers the equations. He leads the target by one wingspan, then another. He fires a short burst, 5 rounds, maybe 6. The tracers streak across the grey dawn and vanish into a wisp of smoke behind the fighter's tail. For a moment, it looks like a miss. Then the 190 banks left directly into the bullet stream. The canopy bursts, and the fighter spins into the sea. "Scratch one," Donovan mutters. No celebration, no fist pump. Just a small, solemn nod. Nearby, other bombers in the formation replicate the same dance bursts of perfectly timed fire, intersecting enemy attack paths with eerie precision. Luftwaffe pilots radio in disbelief. "Die Amerikaner schießen hinter uns." "The Americans are shooting behind us." What the Germans don't realize is that by this stage of the war, the Americans have turned aerial gunnery into a predictive science. Their bullet patterns no longer chase chaos, they anticipate it. The after-action reports from D-Day missions confirm it. Luftwaffe losses are catastrophic. Many German pilots, assuming the bombers' gunners would aim directly, fly straight into deadly convergences of crossfire. In the control room of the 8th Air Force at High Wycombe, intelligence officers spread the data across tables. Charts show a clear curve, from 1,942 to 1,944. American gunner accuracy has doubled, even tripled in some squadrons. Fewer bullets per kill. Fewer gunners lost. What began as a counterintuitive classroom lesson in Florida has now rewritten the laws of survival across the skies of Europe. As night falls over Normandy, the bombers turn homeward. Many are battered, smoking, torn open by flak, but they are returning. Their gunners, these anonymous mathematicians of war, have quietly won one of the most decisive, unseen victories of D-Day, air superiority. In the fading light, Mick Donovan wipes the frost from his turret glass and stares at the clouds glowing red from distant fires. He whispers what every gunner now knows by heart. Don't fight the motion, use it. May 1945 Tinian Island, Pacific Theatre. The war is nearing its end, but in the skies over Japan, the same lessons that saved bomber crews in Europe are now keeping men alive across the Pacific. On B-29 superfortresses bound for Tokyo, American gunners peer through advanced central fire control systems, an evolution of everything born in those early Tyndall classrooms. Instead of manually turning turrets, a gunner now controls multiple stations through electronic sights. The computer inside calculates range, closure rate, and target motion, all to project that invisible line behind the target that once existed only in a gunner's mind. Sergeant James Weller, manning the upper turret of Enola Gay's sister ship, feels the hum of the servo motors beneath his hands. A Japanese Ki 45 twin-engine fighter climbs from below. He adjusts the sight, lets the gyro settle, and fires a controlled burst. The bullets arc forward into the blue, invisible mathematics in motion. The fighter disintegrates before it ever gets close. Weller doesn't cheer, he just exhales. He knows what the weapon did, not magic, not luck, but calculation. Back at training fields in the US, new gunners are still being taught the rule that once seemed impossible: never aim where it is, aim where it will be. By now, the phrase is printed in every manual, embedded in every simulator. The concept has spread beyond bombers to fighter pilots, anti-aircraft crews, even naval gunnery officers. The innovation ripples outward. Decades later, in jet combat over Korea, Vietnam and beyond, computerized lead computing gun sights trace their lineage directly to the American gunners of World War II. Those kids who once learned geometry in a Florida hangar, who guessed angles not for sport but for survival. Historians would call it the birth of modern fire control. Pilots would call it instinct. But the men who lived it had a simpler word. Faith in their training, in their crews, and in the fractions of a second that decided life or death. When victory is declared, the surviving gunners gather at airfields across the world. They line up in the sun beside their battle-scarred fortresses, liberators, and superfortresses. Some carry the blackened barrels of their old 50 caliber Brownings as souvenirs. Others keep nothing, just the reflex burned into their muscles. Reporters ask them how they managed to survive when so many didn't. One veteran grins faintly and answers, "We stopped aiming at the enemy. We started aiming through time." He looks up at the quiet sky, a sky once filled with smoke, fire, and equations. The lesson that saved thousands of lives now belongs to history. The rule remains eternal. In air combat, as in life, the difference between chaos and survival is not strength but anticipation.